Art has forever been accessible to everyone. People of all kinds have been creating art since our first steps. It is a fundamental part of what makes us human. Art is forged by the world around you. Through visual media, literature, speeches, and people's bodies, art teaches, connects, and speaks to each of us in a unique way. Every piece of artwork shares the artist's emotions and experiences in a way that simple words often cannot express. Art is integral in protests, an outlet for a community's resistance, hope, and calls for justice. Some examples include the history of AIDS awareness following the AIDS crisis and the ongoing fight for disability and LGBTQIA+ rights. Historically, deep-rooted stigma shaped the lives of queer people in the UK. Homosexual activity between men was illegal in England and Wales until 1967, and it was only decriminalised in Scotland in 1980. Being gay wasn't just taboo, it was framed as unnatural and a sin. At the same time, disabled people were largely hidden by society, especially those with learning disabilities. Until the 1970s, many of these people had to stay in large institutions. But the 1970s also sparked a change. It became a critical era for disability rights, social activism, and a growing recognition of oppression and barriers disabled people face. A major breakthrough was the creation of the social model of disability, developed to challenge the current medical model of disability, which viewed it as an individual fault and a problem that needed to be prevented, cured, or contained. This caused disabled people to be viewed as unfortunates who needed to be pitied and catered for, resulting in segregation and charitable services. This positive shift aligned with legislative progress like the Chronically Sick and Disabled Persons Act, which required local authorities to identify disabled people who needed services and provide them with sufficient ones, such as practical assistance, home adaptations, educational, and recreational activities. Yet, as disability activism gained momentum, another crisis emerged. The early 1980s saw the first confirmed cases of HIV and AIDS in the UK, with the case reports rapidly increasing throughout the 1980s and into the 90s. During this period, around 90% of UK AIDS cases were among gay and bisexual men, with almost all being in London. Before it was officially named HIV, Human Immunodeficiency Virus, the virus was called GRID, Gay-Related Immune Deficiency. Soon, HIV and AIDS were labelled as gay cancers. Public attitudes toward those who had contracted HIV were divided early on. The guilty were those whose behaviour was said to have brought the infection upon themselves, such as drug users and homosexuals. The innocent were those who had acquired HIV through blood transfusions or haemophilia treatment. Fear spread faster than facts. Many believed that this new, fatal disease was easily infectious, with long-standing misconceptions like the false assumption that you could contact the disease through touch. And for those labelled guilty, there was widespread belief that HIV was a punishment for being gay. The government did not respond to this epidemic until 1987, at which point the misconceptions were already widely believed. The Thatcher administration released the AIDS Don't Die of Ignorance campaign. With somber music and dramatic imagery, the government used art to spread awareness in a fearful and harmful manner. Any awareness this brought to the HIV and AIDS crisis was outweighed by the continued stigma and the fear they produced. Thatcher's government also passed the AIDS Control Act of 1987, which required regional or district health authorities to report data on HIV/AIDS cases and deaths to the Secretary of the State, in the hope that it would help monitor and contain the spread of the virus. Meanwhile, laws like Section 28 of the Local Government Act 1988 were passed, further restricting queer representation by prohibiting local authorities from promoting homosexuality by teaching or by publishing material, and from teaching the acceptability of homosexuality as a pretended family relationship. In response to this discrimination, marginalized communities came together and pushed back, creating grassroots organizations and using creativity and protest art to make a stand. The 1990s became a landmark decade for disability activism in the UK. Hundreds of disabled people took to the streets, demanding civil rights and refusing to stay invisible. Their protests were bold and confrontational, chaining themselves to public transport, wheelchair users blocking the streets, chanting and refusing to move even when police physically lifted them from their chairs. Protest art also flourished, with artists like Dave Lupton creating bold comic art exposing discrimination. The National Disability Arts Collection and Archive, which started in the late 1970s, aided in opportunities and support for disabled artists to be seen, heard, and make change. They archived art, photographs, films and exhibitions to display the protests and battle for disability rights in the UK. These actions helped secure the 1995 Disability Discrimination Act, which made it illegal to discriminate against disabled people in employment or the provision of goods and services. Also during the 1990s, queer communities came together and created grassroots sexual health awareness materials to combat HIV and AIDS transmission. They took on a more sensitive approach to HIV and AIDS awareness, framing the conversation around safer sex, enjoying yourself, and keeping one another safe, rather than shame. The campaigning organization Gay Men Fighting AIDS was founded in 1992, with a focus on HIV prevention for gay and bisexual men in the UK, passing out art to educate and destigmatize AIDS and HIV in the queer communities. A scientific breakthrough also came in the 90s. In 1996, highly active antiretroviral therapy was introduced. Today, most people with HIV are undetectable or untransmittable, meaning their viral load of HIV is so low that they cannot pass the virus on to others. Queer communities still created art, channeling the grief felt throughout the community due to the loss of loved ones from AIDS into protest, bringing awareness to the systemic failures not keeping LGBTQ+ lives safe, demanding accountability from those in charge, and showing that queer people were human beings too. The 2000s brought about the 2010 Equality Act, which states it is discrimination to treat a disabled person unfavorably, not just because of the person's disability itself, but because of something arising from, or in consequence of, the disability, such as the need to take a period of disability-related absence. This ensures disabled people are treated equally and that support and adjustments are accessible. However, despite long-fought progress, disabled people still face huge inequalities today. In the UK, there's a 27.8% employment gap between disabled and non-disabled people, and the disability pay gap has risen to 17.2%. This creates financial issues, with poverty being a major issue for disabled people, along with discrimination in the workplace. People found themselves struggling to find jobs, as being transparent about any disability during the recruitment process can lead to employers assuming that they aren't capable of the job, even when meeting the specifications. If it isn't discrimination, they are also at risk of losing their jobs if they lose access to work funding, which is used for the equipment or support staff to give them better working environments. Strict economic policies in the 2010s led to significant financial cuts to services like the Independent Living Fund, which supported disabled people to live independently rather than in care homes. At the same time, the Conservative government launched several benefit reforms, such as the introduction of personal independence payment as a more restrictive replacement for disability living allowance, as well as replacing incapacity benefit with employment support allowance. The results led to fear, hardship, poverty, and deaths among disabled people because of the threat of benefit reassessments or being removed unfairly from benefits. Coroners have named this as a contributing factor to the death of thousands of disabled people, often from suicide, but in some cases from starvation following the withdrawal of care support after losing PIP or inability to pay for life-saving medications. Furthermore, between 2012 and 2019, austerity policies caused 334,000 deaths, and the United Nations censured the UK government for systemically violating disabled people's rights. Though some disabilities have medical treatments that reduce their effects, the medical model of disability still has limitations. Relying on it alone reinforces harmful assumptions about people with disabilities, contributing to stigma and additional everyday challenges. Stigma is also evident in clinical settings, where health professionals outside psychiatric services may overlook the needs of people with learning disabilities. Evidence from Perry, 2010, shows that individuals with learning disabilities often wait longer than the general population for psychiatric conditions to be recognized and treated, which can increase risks of self-harm and aggressive behavior. Mental health disparities among queer people also remain significant today. According to the 2018 Government Equalities Office, queer individuals report lower life satisfaction, with 24% having accessed mental health services in the previous year. Research shows that LGBTQ+ youth faces particularly high risks, experiencing elevated rates of suicidal ideation and substance use. The Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System found that 31% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth consider attempting suicide, compared to the 14% of their heterosexual peers who had considered it. The minority stress model provides a framework for understanding LGBTQ+ and mental health and the stressors that influence it. The model identifies two types: Distal stressors are external pressures faced by LGBTQ+ individuals because of their identity, including bullying, discrimination, hate crimes, and barriers to housing, healthcare, and education. Proximal stressors are internal experiences such as internalized homophobia or transphobia, concealing one's identity, anticipating rejection. These internal stressors often develop in response to wider societal stigma and cultural or religious norms. Overall, while there are some protections in place for queer, disabled people, and other communities today, we have got a long way to go. Especially today, where it seems our government is moving backwards in regards to laws protecting and supporting marginalised communities. From legal bounds to social and medical environments, discrimination and marginalisation still prevail and are actively being pushed forward by government for those who are seen as other. So what can we do? We create art. Speeches for the community and your governing bodies, banners, leaflets, stories, group art, posters, community spaces. We can all create art. The only thing art costs is time. So grab a notebook, pen or pencil and get crafty. For those 5 minutes of pocket time between your everyday activities, on the bus, in between classes, instead of scrolling for another hour, put pen to paper. Make something. Make it bad. Make it exist. We deserve art. Seeing the horrific injustice that is happening around the world desensitizes us. Hearing about the harmful actions of our government scares us, makes us lose hope. We become apathetic. Art is a start in regaining our empathy. Art gives us a place to catch our breath. So give yourself a break. Do not become overwhelmed and feel like there is nothing you can do. Start by drawing. As you educate yourself, draw. On the way to protests, draw. Create art with people at community events and food banks. Art can be a wonderful way to motivate people to keep protesting going. It starts with a pen or pencil. We have a long way to go, and art can keep us moving forward.